My name is David Adams, and I was born September 21st, 1947, right here in Des Moines, Iowa at Mercy Hospital. We were a very conservative, traditional family. And so, we grew up with strong family values, and we weren't big churchgoers or anything like that, but yet we believed in God. We practiced, a life that was we thought would be pleasing to God as well as pleasing to our neighbors and things. And my father worked hard. And matter of fact, he started building houses when I was 7 years old, and every night after school I would go help him whatever I could from the time I was 7 years old on. So my father was a World War II veteran. He was a tank driver in the Army. I always wanted to be a building contractor or a musician when I grew up, so military was not something that I had planned on, actually. For me, it was the same as it was with a lot of people. The Vietnam War started. I actually remember when the situation in the Bay of Tonkin took place. I was on a roof in Mitchellville shingling a garage with my father, and we heard it on the radio, had a radio on the roof. And my dad stopped and looked at me and he says, "You're going to end up in Vietnam." And that was in 1963, if I remember right. And so, I graduated high school in 1965, and because I wanted to be a bricklayer and didn't go to college, that meant I was 1A for the draft. And so that put me in a position where, you're going to go or else go to Canada, and I was never raised to do that, so even though I liked to fish. So I enlisted rather than be drafted.
You got to pick your poison?
I picked my poison, yeah. And at the time I enlisted, the business agent told me, said, if you go in the Seabees and get a builder's rating, we'll count that time off your apprenticeship. So that had a lot to do with me enlisting in the Seabees. And the interesting thing was, but I was the highest they'd had in Des Moines for, like 4 or 5 years. And so they wanted to send me to Washington, D.C. and put me on security, which meant that I wouldn't go to Vietnam, but I wanted to be a Seabee because I had my heart set on getting that journeyman's card and becoming I wanted to be a bricklayer for a while and then start contracting on my own. And so I chose Vietnam rather than Washington, and somehow I just couldn't see me in dress blues every day anyhow. I enlisted October 2nd in 1967, and I went on active duty October 2nd in 1968. When I enlisted, I was put in the Seabees, which, like I say, is Group 8, and the interesting part of it was at that time we didn't even have our own uniforms. We wore greens that said USMC on them, and we went through military training with Marine Corps. And I actually thought at the time, what have I done? Because Marines were I always thought, way above me. And so I ended up having to go through the training as well with the Marines. I went to A school, and what that is where you train for whatever your rate is, whatever you want to be. I wanted to be a builder, and so they sent me to what they call builder school in Davisville, Rhode Island for 3 months. For me, that was kind of hard because I had grown up, my father was a builder, and back in the old days, a carpenter was not only a carpenter, my father was a bricklayer, a concrete man, a framing carpenter, a trim carpenter. And some of the Navy ways we did things were not quite the way he did things, and so I'd get myself in trouble every now and then because I always thought that my dad knew more than the Navy did, and the Navy didn't agree with that. And the way a Seabee outfit worked in those days was a battalion would go over for 8 months, come back for 6, and then they would either go back to Nam or somewhere else. I joined a battalion that was already in country because they'll have people getting discharged during that tour of duty shortly after the big Tet Offensive. And I got caught up in the aftermath of that, actually. And you might say it went on for more than what their offensive holiday, whatever they called that, was, because it was a mess at that time. And it really was. I was assigned to Charlie Company, and they were on a detachment called Detail Echo. And we were up by Phu Bai, not too far south from Way, and they had established a rock crusher facility there. And so our job was primarily to provide aggregate to keep Route 1 open from the DMZ to Da Nang. And during the Tet Offensive, the North Vietnamese had really torn up Route 1, so there was a lot of work there. Now, as a builder, part of the job, actually the main job that I had while I was there as a builder, was building bunkers on the perimeter. We had 11 bunkers on the perimeter, and we were building those and stringing concertina wire for our own defenses. And a lot of people don't know this, but the Seabees protect what they build.
Oh.
And so we don't go out as an aggressive force, but we defend any, we take charge of this post and all government property in view. I don't know how else to say it, but first general order. And so, matter of fact, our outfit was the only Seabee outfit that I know of that destroyed an enemy position during the Vietnam conflict, but we did. So, but when I first got over there, I got assigned duty to the trash truck. And do you know what the trash truck is? Well, some of the guys that maybe will see this will know what the trash truck is. But every day, me and another fella went around the camp with a dump truck. And in the camp, we had several outhouses that were above ground outhouses, and they take a 55-gallon oil drum and cut it in half. And then in this outhouse, these things are setting underneath the holes, if you know what I mean, but they have to be taken out every day and taken down to the dump and put diesel fuel in them and burned. And so that was part of my job, driving the trash truck. And I remember telling the fellow that was with me on that, I said, how am I going to go home and tell my kids, if I ever have any, that that's what I did when I was in Vietnam? And so that was my first experience in country, and I actually volunteered for security because of that. I think it was in April of my tour over there, our bunker took a direct hit one night. And it's kind of hard to explain how those bunkers were built. They were above ground bunkers. But I was actually asleep up on the side of the bunker. They were about 28, 30 inches wide. We had wood forms, and then a space, and then another set of wood forms. And instead of filling them with concrete, we filled them with dirt. Well, then there was a big roof over us, because we had, I think they were 8x8 posts with a same setup on top. You had about this much room you could see out of, but they were hot. It was hot in there. So we got some plywood and put on the top so the dirt wouldn't blow in our eyes. And I was laying up there asleep. And I remember one of the guys, his name was Joe, and he started shaking me, and he said, Dave, we're getting hit. And he pulled me off of that. And just as he pulled me off, we had a mortar round hit just right there. And had he not done that, I would not be interviewing today. After that experience, I couldn't sleep for 2 days. You're just afraid to close your eyes, and because I was never a brave Seabee. I was just there. I got home from Vietnam. I put my uniform on to go get my picture taken, and I stopped at Altoona at the coffee shop where I had worked next door at the Super Value grocery store growing up, and I was spat upon. And I had someone who was a deputy Polk County Sheriff tell me that I shouldn't wear the uniform in public. And those were the things that made it hard on so many of the Vietnam vets, because we were still just human beings that obeyed the Constitution of the United States and were willing to serve our country. We didn't start the war, and obviously we didn't end it, but we got caught up in the turmoil of it all. I am thankful for the way that America is treating our veterans that are coming home now. If they want to pay me back, that's how they can pay me back, and that's give them the honor and the recognition that they deserve, because nobody should go through what some of us went through at home. That was worse than the war. And I've had ministers and Christians tell me, well, Well, Dave, God spared you because he knew that someday you would be in the ministry and da 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 da. And that all sounds good, but then to me that sounds like I'm better than somebody else. And I don't believe that, because the Bible says God is no respecter of persons. So if he did that, he had more respect for me than he would somebody that died. And I just think that fortunately there wasn't a bullet or a mortar with my number on it, and I made it home. So what am I going to do now? And so that's what I've been working on since 1968. All of this time that I had been on active duty was supposed to count toward my apprenticeship. When I got home, we had a different business agent in the union who did not know anything about this deal that the bricklayers had made with me. So that all went off the table. So now I've still got 3 years apprenticeship to do, because I'd only done one of my 4 years. And a couple of months went by, and one of the guys that had went into the apprenticeship program at the same time I had went in was moving to Florida. And of course he had a brother that was a bricklayer. And so the union decided, well, rather than have him transfer his apprenticeship, we'll just give him his journeyman's card early. And but they had an apprenticeship board, and one of the guys on the board had taken a liking to me. And he spoke up and he said, I'll agree with that on one condition. He said, we give Dave his card too, because he said Dave was a natural, and he said he's a better bricklayer than any of the 34 that signed up that year, and said he's the only one that served his country. And I got my card anyhow. So it had a way of working itself out. There was a lot of bumps along the way, but I came back in one piece. I learned a lot. Got my journeyman's card, and 44 years I've been married now, and I got 3 kids that still haven't quite figured their dad out sometimes, because they went through some rough times with me when they were growing up, and 6 grandchildren. And I have had a successful life in construction, never got rich, but loved what I did. And I've pastored 4 churches as well, and now looking forward to retirement. And I think the thing I'm going to miss more than anything is Legion Post 155 in Mitchellville, because I love those guys, and it's been an honor to be a part of that Legion Post and just serve pancakes once a month with guys that have served their country. I've made a difference in a lot of people's lives. I built a lot of homes, laid a lot of basements, laid a lot of brick. I've had a lot of people tell me they've enjoyed the messages I preached, and I don't think my life was in vain. And so I'm glad I didn't give up. And my word to any Vietnam or any veteran out there, no matter how hard you've had it, no matter how many people have hurt you or mistreated you, never give up. Never give up, never quit. Because what makes this country great is people that never give up. And if we give up, it's all over. And till my last dying breath, I will never give up. I just won't do it. I just refuse to let anything separate me from being an American and serving God and trying to be a good father and husband and grandfather. I guess the only thing I would say to our young people is be thankful you were born in America. I have been clear around the world now since I've gotten out of the Navy. I've been to places like Haiti and Lithuania and other countries in Europe and Mexico and Japan, and there's no place like this place. And if you were born here, be thankful. And if you however you got here, be thankful you're an American.